What's going on, golf addicts? Welcome to the Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network. It is Genesis Scottish Open week. We got 2 weeks overseas. Genesis Scottish this week, the Open Championship next week from Royal Liverpool. Pumped about that. Love getting some early morning coffee cup, main coverage kind of golf. It's good. Like normally we wake up in the morning with our cup of coffee and you got to find it somewhere on some streaming platform and you're watching, Doug Gim and Doc Redman play in the featured group, but not here, not this week, not next week. Genesis Scottish at North Berwick, a place, a town near and dear to me and Pat's heart. We're going to get into that later. We're going to also be joined by our friend Matt Adams, the host of Fairways of Life, and talk a little bit of betting, talk a little bit about our DraftKings DFS cash game lineup, which did cash last week.
Yeah,
but I think we got to start, Pat, with another outright winner for you in Sepp Straka at the John Deere Classic, my friend.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow,
it's
so hot.
I mean, I should have flames coming out from behind me. Really, I should. I don't know. I can't even believe that producer Tony didn't throw some flames up on me somehow.
Look at there. Look at that. He grabbed the screenshot. Pat is up nearly 80 units after back-to-back wins on the outright Pat's Not That Anyone Cares betting card. They should start caring. They should start.
Yeah, they should. They should start caring. It was a good week. Listen, the Ricky Fowler bet last week was good. It was good, but I mean, he was one of the favorites, obviously. But Straka was not. Straka was. I mean, he was 60-1. He was not on a lot of people's cards. There was some thought, maybe from the person that's here with me on this show, that he couldn't score enough in an event like the John Deere Classic.
Wow.
But wow. I mean, I'm just saying, DB, but he did score. And, I think it wasn't a bad take that you had, really. I mean, his win came at the Honda, whereas we've traditionally been a very difficult golf course. But I just had a good feeling about Straka this week. He's been playing well. Been playing really well. We're friends with his coach, John Tillery. He said he's been just striping it. Other than the 18th hole, their 72nd hole, he was striping it pretty good.
Some would say the second shot was still striped. It was just,
it sounded good.
I'm very familiar with the flushed pull draw. And that's what he did.
Yeah, it sounded really good, and then it just went
flying cheeks
into the water. Yeah, it was, and he doubles the last hole, which I had texted you earlier in the day, and I'm like, is this over? And because I don't like to touch the money, My dad always said, don't touch the money. Yeah. DB was like, I think it's time to touch the money. Yeah. And then, but this is what happens in golf. But he ends up winning. It was great to see. And that's back-to-back winners, DB, just so you know.
Well, okay, so I think there's a learning opportunity here, Pat. Mm-hmm. The Better Sports Network, we're all about learning. Making better golfers, better DFS players, whatever. Mm-hmm. A pre-tip, some would say. I think we've done that before here. We've pre-tipped it. And you know what? I did make the claim. We got into a debate Wednesday night in our live chat in our Discord, which if you're not a member of our Discord, you should be. About Sepp Straka and his ability to win in birdie fests, which the John Deere Classic historically has been, and I would argue was this year as well.
Yeah.
And I guess in his career at that point before the John Deere, he had 14 career top 10s, 14, and only 2 of those did the winning score reach 20 under. And 20 under is kind of that, to me, it's kind of like 19 to 20 is kind of that benchmark on the PGA Tour for a birdie fest.
Agree.
You mentioned the win was at the Honda. So as far as what we have seen of Sepp at this point in his career, that is what we've seen. We've seen him do better in average to more difficult scoring conditions. We've seen him not really involved in the birdie fests, except for those 2 events. Knowing that the John Deere was a birdie fest, I was willing to write him off. So I guess, one thing that we could take away from this is Sepp is a perfect example of he's a very volatile guy. If you look at his finishes, and we talked about this on Wednesday night, and you admitted this too. We all know this of Sepp. Like, he is a very up and down, like he's a roller coaster. If you bet on Sepp or you play Sepp in DFS, He can look great. Everything can be lining up. Form could be good. Checking all the boxes. You play him and he trunk slams and he's got a free weekend and you're pissed. And then he's coming into a tournament off of 3 consecutive missed cuts and you completely ignore him. And all of a sudden he top 10s. Like, he's definitely shown us that over his entire career. But the highs are pretty high, right? And so I guess the pre-tip here is if you follow these guys close enough and you realize that about that player. So like you have that kind of player versus the kind of player who like you see it coming, right? I think like maybe some of the Max Homa stuff you could say maybe he's a player like that. I don't know. But like where you see the form peaking and then you go, okay, bang, now I'm going to hit it. And the upside is there. He's a little more consistent of a player, kind of rides the wave of good form and takes him a minute to come out of the bad form. And, he goes from a bunch of missed cuts to maybe a T40 or a T30 and then bang, where Sepp is not that guy. And when you have a guy who's like Sepp at a big number in a really weak field, maybe it's just kind of an auto bet. And that's really where it made sense here. I mean, Sepp at 60-1 pre-tournament in a field as weak as the John Deere, was probably too long, all things considered, in terms of Sepp's overall pedigree, overall tour performance, ability to win. And you capitalized on that. So I think the pre-tip is maybe understanding the player and understanding that he's one of those players that could pop at any minute. He could also really frustrate you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think one of the things that stood out to me about Sepp and his game, and that just comes from experience watching him and watching these other players, is he is a pretty aggressive player. And when you have an aggressive player, that means there is still potential in a birdie fest where he could get hot, which is what he did. I mean, on Sunday, well, he shot 73 in the first round or 74. I don't know. He was 2 over. And
Yeah.
then he goes in and just obliterates that course the rest of the way. I mean, he really should have. You take out the double he had on his 72nd hole, he still probably should have won that golf tournament by 3 or 4 shots easily, if not more. So he definitely led the field in birdies. I mean, even that 72nd hole shot showed how aggressive he is. He really did not even have to come close to hitting that shot. He could have taken it out right of the bunker and drew it in if he wanted to. Like, he didn't need to do all that. But he still was pretty aggressive on that shot, even though it was kind of a pull hook. But I agree. I mean, Sepp's not going to be a guy that pops every week for you. But you can pick your spots with him, and it worked out for sure. So I was happy about it. But I'm feeling a DB week's coming. It's coming.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it was a fun tournament. I did have some guys up there. I mean, I had Poston and Glover and Schenk all had chances at one point over the weekend, but Sepp kind of ran away with it. And the JDC is the JDC. It actually made for an entertaining Sunday, even with the weak field. It was a fun tournament to watch. It was fun to watch Sepp do his thing. He was on 59 watch until that shot on 18. I mean, if he birdies it with all those people gathered around the green and everybody talking about a 59, if he birdies it, he scores a 59.
Yeah.
So, that could have been part of the aggressive decision there by Sepp, which, hey, I respect it. Like, let him hang, Sepp. Go ahead. Yeah. Let's do it. You had Allison Corpus win the U.S. Women's Open at Pebble Beach. It was pretty cool. Shot 9 under total. The only player with all 4 rounds under par. You also had Michelle Wie playing in her last tournament, which today in things that make you feel old. Michelle Wie playing and hanging it up. Like, what?
Yeah.
What? I remember when Michelle Wie came out, and what was she, like 8 years old or something? I mean, she was like the youngest ever.
She was, and she was fantastic and great for the game because it kind of was like, a little. I mean, it's after Tiger, but for the women's game, it was, she was a huge deal. That was in the beginnings, or really when Tiger's in his heyday, and she comes out and was fantastic. I would say injuries and other things kind of curtailed her career to what it could have been, and maybe that's from starting at such a young age, swinging as hard as she's swinging. But she was great for the game. So that does make me feel old, though, that she's retiring and done.
In the world of LIV golf, which we also have plenty to talk about today on the LIV or on the Senate hearing with Jimmy Dunn and what's the guy named
Ron Price,
sitting in front of the Senate committee today. That was entertaining. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a second. We're also going to talk about it with our guest Matt Adams. But Cam Smith wins LIV London. Cam trending at just the right moment as your defending Open champion at 16-1 currently on the odds board. And you know, we can talk about Cam's play, but I thought this was interesting. Did you catch his interview after? He seemed genuinely disappointed that they didn't get the team win.
Yeah, I don't even know, to be honest. It's I kind of figured, you know, it's you never know if your score counts as well. So I was thinking that putt on the last meant something, and like I said, I hit a good putt, but yeah, really mixed emotions. You know, we've been talking about it all year. It's been in the group chats. Everyone's been playing good the last couple of weeks. Spain and here. I think the practice rounds have got a little bit tidier, a little bit more crisp. Probably just a little bit more attention, I guess, to detail out in the golf course. And yeah, and I was really expecting a big week last week. It wasn't really our weekend in Spain, but yeah, we showed that we're a contender of you know, of the team stuff, and you know, that's where we want to be every week.
And how did you process the entire day, knowing that you're at the top of the leaderboard? You've got Mark chasing you, you've got others coming up to chase you, you got the team element. Like, as you're going through the round, are you looking at the leaderboards? Are you looking at where the team is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all that stuff. I'm a bit of a leaderboard watcher. I love to know where I'm at. I love to know kind of what I have to do, and you know, this course is so fiddly. It's tough to play with a lead. You're almost trying to place it in the fairway and place it on the green rather than just hitting your shots, and it can get to you. I think you know, it's the best the putters felt for a long time, and I think that definitely saved today's round.
Yeah, you know, I didn't see the interview, but I heard about this, that he was really disappointed about, because I think he needed a birdie on the last to tie. I think because they lost by a shot.
Yeah.
In the team win. And yeah, he seemed very disappointed about that. It did also raise a question to me, like, what happens when they tie in these team events? I don't know if I've seen a tie. Do they have like do they all do like a shootout? Like a member guest shootout? Like, what do they do?
Yeah, actually, I don't know. Has there been a tie in team event?
I don't know. That's a good question. I want to know. And I want to know what the process is for breaking the tie.
I wonder if they just split the first and second place money like they would in like a tie on tour.
I don't know. It's a team event. You can't.
Well, I don't know. What kind of playoff?
You can't have ties in a team event.
But what kind of playoff are they going to do with 8
guys? I don't know. A shootout would be great. They all get in their golf carts and start drinking and do a shootout. Like
a captain versus captain thing or something, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting because I think people still underestimate. I think people still underestimate how much the team thing actually does matter to those guys on LIV. It is at times easy to make fun of. I can see that. Sometimes it feels like they're forcing it to work, or they're forcing people to be interested in it. But I don't know. When I was watching the Cam Smith thing, it made me think about, like, you know, if when we play like Ryder Cup style events with our buddies every couple years, right? Like, it's not like we're playing for, in our world, thousands of dollars. You know, I'm not motivated by a ton of money that I'm going to get to bring home if our team wins, or if I win the match, or if we retain the cup that we're playing. But a lot of guys, and a lot of competitive guys and golfers, just want to compete. And when it comes to a team, they just want to win, and they don't want to let their team down. And that goes for whether you're playing for millions of dollars like they are on LIV, or I think if you're just playing your Ryder Cup style event that you do with your buddies in Myrtle Beach every other year. And I think people underestimate that aspect, because it gets made fun of a lot. But genuinely felt like Cam Smith was genuinely let down that whatever he had to do at the end to lock up a team win for his guys, for his mates, didn't happen. And I don't agree with the narrative that these guys are forcing the team thing to matter. At the end of the day, are they doing it for themselves? Yeah, I mean it's their job. You are on an island to an extent as a golfer. Even when you work for a company that you love, and maybe you're a manager and you have people under you. Of course you care about them, but at the end of the day, you're there to get a paycheck for your family, for you, right? But secondarily, you can care about everyone around you and your company or your team also winning. And I think that happens on LIV. And I think, I would argue most of the guys on LIV would feel that way about their teammates.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that in another way, in a more negative way, with Brooks and his comments that he had on Matthew Wolff.
Yeah.
Obviously, Brooks cares about the performance and the work ethic, quote, maybe that his teammates have, enough to come out with a comment that was, very damning on to Matthew Wolff, and so that shows, though, some caring for him to even say that. I think there's still a big divide between these players caring about their teams and fans caring about the teams. Like, I don't know how you create that. I really don't know. I mean, you and I are fans of the Georgia Bulldogs. We've been it's regionally. We grew up with that, or we could just say Atlanta Braves or whatever. It's something that's sort of instilled in you from a very young age, and then you become invested in it. I don't know how that happens with these teams.
I think you just hit on a good point. I think if LIV sees itself and saw itself when it started all this, which I think it did, as a long-term thing. Okay, hear me out here. Because some would say they did not, or this isn't going to be a long-term thing. And now a lot of it's changed with the whole possible merger. But I think the only way that you can really get the numbers of people to care is to start them young and get them to care young, and then they'll grow up caring. Because it's really hard as a golf team that's not Ryder Cup affiliated to get a guy in his 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s to care. Because my whole life, I've not cared about any golf team except for the USA Ryder Cup team or the Presidents. And I barely even cared about the Presidents Cup team. So I think you look at something like what the Range Goats did, right? When they came out with the big chains, the chains that all these kids watch their favorite college football players and NFL players put on, whether it's a championship belt when they get an interception, or with the dogs, they'll put the shoulder pads on or something. Those things are kind of popular. My son bought one of these big chains at his first Mavericks game when I took him to see Luka. They come out with stuff like that, and the goal would be to get these kids affiliated with a team that they really like, whether it's through cool merch or branding, or because they love Harold Varner III, or because they think Bubba Watson's cool because he hits it far and he rocks a pink driver, and that's cool. He's got swagger, whatever that is. If they could get the young people to care and come up over the years caring, then they could have people that care about team golf. But I think it's probably somewhat futile to think that they're going to convince, you in your 40s, me approaching 40s rapidly, to care about the team golf in the same way.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, which is, I guess, potentially part of the long-term deal there when you're talking about the framework agreement between the PGA Tour and LIV, and some potential things that they have as far as keeping the things that LIV has done and what the PGA Tour is doing. So,
yeah. Before we get to our guest, Matt Adams, we're going to take a break, but listen, I think let's give a couple minutes before break on our thoughts on the hearing today. Pat, how much of it did you get to watch?
I haven't been able to watch any with my eyeballs. I have heard it. They did have it on the radio today on XM when I was listening to it, but it was quite interesting to hear, especially some of the senators, and they're just, for one, I think a lack of knowledge with a lot of, golf in general, but also just grilling these guys, just, I feel like, because they're on stage and they get to do it. It was interesting what I heard, and it was just snippets of it, so it's not the whole thing, but it was.
There were so many funny moments. I love what Tony put here. Some things were said. Some things were said by some guys that said stuff in a room somewhere. First of all, there were so many things. one of his old guys, I don't even know where the hell he came from. I think they lowered him down from the ceiling like the guys in the Bible to get I don't know where he came from because the only thing he did was he spoke for a few minutes and he literally told a story about his damn round. I'm like, are we going to get the play-by-play on his round? He talked about Sammy Snead. I'm like, what the fuck? We're talking about Sammy Snead right now? He's like Sammy Snead, and then he talked about how he got into golf and he like literally went through his whole round like your buddy does.
Gosh.
You know, after he shoots his best round ever or something. I was like, what the fuck are we doing? You had that guy, and then he just vanished. We never saw him again. It was like he literally only walked in the meeting because he had to tell everybody about this round of golf he had and Sam Snead connection. He was gone. You had the other guy who was a Republican senator, I can't remember from where, who literally seemed like a total bro, and he kissed ass to Jimmy Dunn the whole time. Like he was basically, I mean, he may as well like lifted his shirt and had like, will you take me to Augusta National, like painted on his body, because he was just trying to get an invite from Jimmy Dunn. He kissed his ass the entire time. You had Blumenthal, who led the whole thing, who did the opposite of kissing ass. I mean, he
ripped into everything from wherever I heard him.
He ripped into everything. He talked about how, you know, how greedy it was and what a bad look it was and all this. And I'm like, I go and Google Chuck Blumenthal's net worth. By the way, it's $115 million. I'm like, okay, well, you're one to talk, bub. I'm sure all of that money is, you know, was nicely sourced and coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What else did we have? I mean, it was a cacophony, an orchestra of shit showery by a bunch of suits. And boy, it was painful to watch. Jimmy Dunn, yikes. I mean, I put this tweet up because it's just what it made me think of. I mean, if you watched Succession, you know that they put Tom Wambsgans, you know, up in front of the Senate committee, and he struck out. I mean, he struck out, not even swinging, just whiffing, looking. And Jimmy Dunn had a rough go. If they asked him a hard question, his body was like literally, I was like, is he going to be okay? If they asked him a tough question, the stuttering and the like he was short circuiting was so bad. I'm like, this guy is a massive billionaire businessman for decades. He's a member of Augusta National. He's all chairman on all these boards and shit. And he can't get up here and at least fake it. Like, whoa, it was so bad. It was rough to see. Twitter was fun. I love being on Twitter and looking at all the takes. I didn't see anybody on Threads. I didn't go to Threads. You know, Threads is a thing now. I hope I'm not. Nothing was on there. Anyway, it was.
I don't even understand what we're doing. Like, well, what are we doing here? All this agreement did is end litigation.
Well,
that's all it did. It did. There's no deal that they can look at yet. I mean, there's so like, what are they even doing?
That's the argument that the one that was trying to get the Augusta National invite. That's what he was basically saying. His whole thing was like, why don't we wait until they get deal points figured out? And
well, I mean, that kind of makes sense. I don't care if he's trying to get a national invite. That makes sense to me. So,
yeah. It was interesting. I want to get Matt Adams' takes on it here in just a minute. So we got to take a break. Come right back. Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in Dynasty Fantasy Football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in Dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format of fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been, I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a one season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you gotta have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
Making you money in daily fantasy sports and golf betting. Tour Junkies on Better Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to the Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network. We're going to pick up our conversation on the Senate hearings, the PGA, the LIV merger stuff. Me and Pat obviously gave a few of our maybe more comedic thoughts in the opening segment there. Pat's asking me about one of the words I used. But now we're going to bring in someone probably a little more intelligent. In fact, I know for a fact more intelligent than we are. Although he was traveling, so he didn't have a whole lot of time to watch anything. We know he read up on some things in regards to the Senate hearing. And you know him as the host of Fairways of Life, does a lot of stuff with the Golf Channel, been around the golf game and doing the golf game quite the good service for some time now. Our friend Matt Adams. What's up, Matt? Thanks for joining us from the airport.
Good to see you guys. Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's an honor.
So you're on the way to Ireland, and you were on the plane. You didn't get to watch. So, I mean, first of all, that's probably a blessing in disguise because it was just, God, it's tough to watch. But you read up on some of this stuff. I guess just your overall take and thoughts on today, but also zooming out, kind of the future. Do you see this thing getting done? What do you think is actually going to happen with all this stuff?
My first thought on the permanent subcommittee on investigations taking up the cause of PIF and the PGA Tour and their attempted union was that it strikes me as somewhat of political bluster, because I think the first time when you look at something that's going to rise to a level of our elected officials actually conducting an investigation, the first question I ask is, who's the constituency? Who are they looking to protect? Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut has said that the PGA Tour is a cherished American institution, and as a cherished American institution, then obviously it's worthy of protection and perhaps protecting them from themselves, with the government stepping in and questioning a union with the sovereign fund of the Saudi royal family. But at the same time, this is the same federal government that is investigating the PGA Tour through the Department of Justice on the grounds of antitrust. So there's a conflict between the two there. Is this a cherished American institution that deserves to be protected from interests that may be contrary to their own, even if they initiated them? Or is this an organization that's guilty of being a monopoly and needs to be broken up by the federal government? I spoke with an expert in antitrust and in sports law. His name is Mark Levenstein, and Mark said to me that as a legislation division of the federal government, that the only thing that they can do is they would have to pass legislation to actually block the union if it is the intent of the PGA Tour and PIF to consummate a deal. Otherwise, they could put pressure on the Department of Justice. They also could attack the PGA Tour's charitable status. But in terms of what they, as an investigative body, can do to thwart the coming together of these two parties, they really don't have the power to do that, again, unless they go to the extraordinary and pass legislation, which is incredibly unlikely. So a lot of this seems to me to be just a lot of flag waving and statements being made. I don't understand really how it's going to make a material difference one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, my thought was, I'm sitting there listening to some of it today. I didn't get to actually watch it and put any eyeballs on it like David did, but it's just, it's almost like, what are we even doing here? It's a framework agreement, which we keep hearing that word, but it effectively ends litigation. But after that, there's no agreement to really look at right now. There's not an official agreement for them to even do anything about. So it like you said, it just feels like a lot of showiness right now, a lot of politics that really don't need to be involved anyway.
Well, I mean, I don't have an issue with the fact that if these senators, if other constituencies they feel that need representation or that they openly represent are against the union because of what it means to have Saudi Arabia's sovereign fund, as they are putting it, taking over the professional game when they would be at its highest tiers. That's a fair assessment. I don't really have an issue with people having an issue with that. It's just in this case, there isn't enough there to warrant an investigation at this point, in my view, to say, tell me about who's going to be in charge and how much money they're going to bet. They don't know any of these questions yet. So I think they kind of jumped the gun on it a little bit. But at the same time, as there has been through this entire issue, the entire time, it's just been dripping with hypocrisy. Because this is the same federal government, as I mentioned, that Department of Justice is investigating the PGA Tour. This is the same federal government that has multiple military bases in Saudi Arabia. And I'd like to believe that our military is a more cherished American institution than is even the PGA Tour. So the fact that it's okay for the government to do business with Saudi Arabia, but it's not okay for Gulf to do business with it, the fact that there is hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars from this exact same fund invested in companies that we use every day, and that seemingly is okay. But again, it's a greater concern and a greater threat to our American society as to what golf does relative to that. It to me is all of it a bit of political theater.
I think political theater is definitely what it felt like today when I was watching. I was joking about in the first segment. There was one senator who I don't even know his name because he literally appeared out of nowhere and then vanished. He literally just told us a recap of his golf game at one point. It was unbelievable. But do you think there's any scenario where, or maybe the legal counsel that you had on your show, where this thing somehow gets disbanded and the tour is left to fend for themselves? As Senator Blumenthal suggested, why don't you go out and seek private equity money or do some sort of IPO? That was kind of his solution to this whole thing if they were worried about the money. But it seems like at this point, now that the two parties can't sue each other anymore, they've dropped that, right? If for some reason this merger did not go through, it does feel like, what does the tour have to do? Like, it seems like they would completely be SOL. I mean, they'd be done, right?
Potentially. I mean, I think it'd be a tremendous risk to the PGA Tour, in my view, if the deal didn't go through, which I happen to think the deal is going to go through, because I just don't think that, a senator's position on it, regardless. I don't know what his business acumen or what his background is in golf, and apparently we found out one of the senator's golf game. That's good. But I don't see it not going through. Having said that, if it didn't go through, I think the risks to the PGA Tour continue to be the same. I think the comments that were made by the commissioner about the cost of litigation were overplayed. I think that was part of a campaign to win over support. Again, the legal experts that I spoke to, using the amount that he referenced in one of his communications internally of $50 million a year is darn near impossible. However, the bigger risk that is very possible is that if this was not to happen and if they went their so-called separate ways, then I think the public investment fund through LIV would double down and would poach and continue to poach the stars of the PGA Tour, which is a massive risk. Because as the PGA Tour has proven to us many times over the years and continues to focus through elevated events and through their proposed union here, this is a sport that's about the stars, just like any other major league sport at the top tier. And so if they already were on the verge of losing some big names before this was announced, there were communications and negotiations going on behind the scenes with some very, very big stars. And if they had left, it would have been extremely damaging to the PGA Tour. And what reason do we have to believe, especially now, since apparently legal roadblocks would have otherwise been removed, what would stop LIV from continuing to take the very, very best and putting them under their league? So it's a huge threat, I believe, to the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour is trying to make that clear.
I think that the word threat would be the biggest thing that I took from listening to it was the forthcoming nature at which Jimmy Dunn and Ron Price were talking about the threat of LIV. I mean, it was, something at the very beginning we didn't think, or at least we weren't led to believe as much was a threat, but they were very forthcoming about this is a huge threat to us, and they're just going to keep picking off players. And that was, it was just going to be part of our demise. And they did not hide that at all. I mean, that was something that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, from my sources for the last couple of years have told me that internally, the language of Jay Monahan and his top lieutenants was that this is a matter of survival. This is a war of survival. So could the deal go down? Could they get funding from someplace else? Sure, they could get funding from someplace else. But as Jay himself said, that if this war is to be fought with dollars as the weapons, then we can't fight. They don't have a $700 billion fund that's behind them. So just finding another source of capital is, while that's a simplistic look from someone that's looking at it from the outside in, that's not going to help the PGA Tour, because the PGA Tour knows that they would still, in that case, lose their biggest stars. And when they lose their biggest stars, you lose the audience. You lose the most important part, which are people to care.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's enough of that. You're headed to Ireland. You're going to be covering the Open Championship. I guess before that, have you ever covered the Genesis Scottish? Have you ever played the Renaissance Club in North Berwick?
Yes,
Nice.
I have.
Awesome.
It's a Tom Doak course down there in North Berwick, and have spent quite a bit of time in that area, quite a bit of time there, and have in fact been at the golf course many times, covered it many times. It's a unique place because it's got this mix of American links as well as Scottish links. Tom Doak designed it. And when they did the design, typical links, especially the famed ones like North Berwick or Muirfield or Archerfield links that surround the club, it's Renaissance is its formal name, Renaissance, if you please, from an American interpretation of the same. It's unique because most links golf courses are barren. Right? They're links land. They're land that was formerly covered by the sea. And so because of that heavy sand base, it's very hard for trees and forests to take root. Well, on this property, it has a stretch that are dunes, which was probably 10, 12 years ago now. Tom Doak went in and redesigned because they had bought adjoining land from Muirfield. So they picked up some true dunes land strip along the Firth. But by and large, it's land that in many ways is agricultural land. So they left a lot of the old ancient stone walls. They left a lot of trees. There are a lot of elements to the golf course that's a hybrid between what you would expect from traditional links and what is otherwise more of a parkland type of golf course. So it's a combination of both.
Yeah, we were privileged enough last year to go and play the North Berwick West Links course right next door. It's just absolutely stunning, and one of our favorite courses we've ever played, if not the favorite. So talk to us about Royal Birkdale next week, Royal Liverpool, sorry, next week for the Open Championship. Your thoughts on that, and maybe some early guys you have your eye on.
Well, I actually think, given the weather forecast that we have for the coming really 2 weeks, it's going to be a lot of rain. It's a minimum that I've seen in terms of rain is 50-50 per day, and the odds are a lot higher than that by and large. This week in Scotland, I'm sure you guys have seen, they're expecting winds upwards to 30 miles per hour. So this week is going to be a great primer because it's going to be about ball striking through the conditions that you have. It's also, if you can have a hot putter on that golf course, obviously it's going to help you as it would anywhere else. As far as Royal Liverpool goes, it's probably my least favorite course of the Rota. Relatively flat, very little undulation. It has some, but not crazy. It's got a out of bounds, in course out of bounds on the right side of one that I really don't like, but it is what it is because it gets very tight over there. And it's difficult on that line on that right side, but nonetheless, it happens to be the case. So when I look at the Rota of courses that they use for the Open, I would say this is probably of that Rota my least favorite of the lot, which doesn't mean that it's not a great golf course and doesn't mean that it's not worthy of an Open. It's just the other ones are so fabulous that in comparison it pales. So I think because of the weather, I think because of the golf course, I think because of the state of the game right now, that it's going to be an incredibly open. I think there'll be a lot of players that will be able to contend. I think it's going to make it very exciting for all of us as golf fans and broadcasters as to what can happen next week. So, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Again, the first place that I would go in a setting like this is I would go to Ball Strikers. Obviously, Rory McIlroy, who's won there last time we were there, Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm. You look at all the players at the top. That also includes very much Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson with the play Taylor Gooch has had of late. I keep an eye on him. So if you go through the list of players that could potentially contend at Royal Liverpool, it's a really long list.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, you bring up a good point. We've been talking about it all week, banging the drum, that when we're playing over here, we're primarily a betting show. It's tough to feel like you can commit to anything until the very last minute, and you understand the weather and you understand wave advantages. Even the Genesis Scottish last year, over a 2-shot shot advantage in those waves the first 2 rounds. Sounds like we're going to get some more of that. So Matt, we appreciate your time. Let everybody know where they can find your content the next couple of weeks, and we appreciate you coming on.
At Matt Adams FOL, Instagram, Twitter, Threads. On my show Fairways of Life airs live daily at 8 a.m. Eastern time on YouTube. It's a national television broadcast every weekend, so just check affiliates near you. And then Golf Channel with regularity too. So kind of all over the place, but where I'm going now is where I always say where your soul is set free to soar. I can't wait to get back to Ballybunion and just chill out for a couple days in advance of the Open.
Love it.
Nice. Yes, love that. All right, we got to take a break. Thank you to Matt Adams. Check him out.
See you
Matt,
guys.
safe travels. We'll be right back here on the Better Sports Network.
Breece Hall right now, and I've talked to plenty of high-stakes players, I'm sure you have too, Kev. Had Hall not torn his ACL last year, he might have been the 101 in drafts this year. That's how good he was looking last year, and obviously with the addition of Aaron Rodgers. At the 305, running back 11 behind Derrick Henry and Ramondre Stevenson, right ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris. Your thoughts on him as a mid-third round pick? How have you been attacking him? Have you been getting him at that spot so far this year?
Yeah, if I start out with 2 wide receivers, Breece Hall is right at the top of the queue coming into the third. If I knew he'd be healthy for week 1, I was still a little.
Well, he'd be going higher than the mid-third.
Right. He may go 101 or well, RB1 at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know that. Even if he's healthy in spring and the summer, I still like if I'm running a team, if I'm the coach, I'm bringing him back slow. Like he's on a pitch count. Like I want him for the end of the season because I got Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, right? Like even if he's fully healthy, I would work him in slow. But that is actually what you want. Like he's still going to get the high value touches. So yeah, if we know he's healthy, he's a first rounder. So like if he's sitting there in the third, especially when I get 2 wide receivers to start, I'll take Hall all day.
Yeah, it almost makes you think that the uncertainty with Breece Hall has made him unfairly fall too far, right? Like because we're talking about the team here in June. They're still hoping that he's ready for week 1. This is not, we'll see what happens. We're taking it day by day. We're liking how he's coming along. No, they still think by week 1. And the fact that we have that timeline, I think, maybe bumps him up, especially as the drafting season gets deeper and deeper here in July and August. Maybe we start seeing him go up the boards as well.
Now back to Tour Junkies.
Damn it! Hit one good fucking iron shot.
I don't think you like that one.
On Better Sports Network.
All right, welcome back, golf addicts, to the Tour Junkies Golf Show on the Better Sports Network. Grateful to have our friend Matt Adams join us. All the LIV PGA Senate hearing stuff that's going on, as well as previewing the Open Championship there. I'm excited for that next week. Pat, I think I got to get out of here because I've got another show to hop on.
Oh, you're busy. You're busy. Okay.
I mean, They want to know who I'm playing so they can fade all those guys.
Yeah.
So listen, let's do our cash lineup since we got another one through last week. Let's do our cash lineup. And this is a little scary because we are doing this on a Tuesday without getting the full weather picture. But we got to give it a shot. We got to give the people what they want. Why don't you start off? This is a 50-50 or double up DraftKings cash lineup only. Just trying to get as many guys through the cut as possible. This is not the same as like a GPP tournament level approach. So why don't you start us, Pat, and let's keep the streak alive.
Well, I'm going to start in the 9K range with a guy I know you and I both like a lot at 9,600, Terrell Hatton.
Yeah.
I like him a lot this week. So
couldn't agree more. Seems like a guy who's weatherproof. Doesn't matter if it's perfect. Doesn't matter if it's windy and rainy. I think he's still. I would have led with him myself. I want to go to another guy who's kind of proven it here, and he's actually a former winner here, not at the Genesis Scottish, but when it was the Aberdeen Scottish Open, it did play a little bit different. But we've also seen this guy kind of grind it out in tough conditions. What do you think about Aaron Rye at 7,800?
Yeah, big fan of Rye. He's been playing really well lately. So I'm with you there.
Okay.
With you there. All right. Well, I think DB, I really want to go up into the, at this 8K range, but stay at the bottom of it. And I think, we got to go with the young kid and Aberg. I think at 8,200. Yeah, man, he's just been playing so well.
He has. He's never played here though.
Yeah, but
how much do you think that matters? He's also coming over late.
I mean, if I'm not going to take him, I'm probably going to go Adam Scott.
Why don't we go Adam Scott?
All right, we'll go Adam Scott.
I like Adam Scott only from more links experience. He's and Adam Scott needs some FedEx Cup points.
He does.
My guy needs some points. This is that time of year. These guys start to.
It wasn't hard for you to talk me into Adam Scott.
Yeah. Another guy who played well here before and is coming over on the John Deere charter, but like I said last year, played well to a T10. Also led the John Deere in strokes gained approach last week. What do you think about Alex Smalley at 7,900?
Yeah, huge fan of Mr. Smalley.
Okay,
so I'll
we got 2 picks left, around 8,300 average.
I kind of want to go up to Justin Rose.
I was gonna say we could go up to Rose. I like that, or we could go even a little higher and see what we have left with like a Shane Lowry or even a Tommy Ladd.
Well, let's go up to Tommy Ladd and see. It's 7,200.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some folks in here that I think you can, some consistent guys. You could go with Thunder Bear Olesen. You could go with him. You could go with Jordan Smith.
Today, Pat, I love Olesen, but you know what I noticed in a couple of head-to-head matchups from the sharper books overseas, not liking Thorbjorn at all.
Really?
Kind of made me pause a little bit. I do think Jordan Smith is interesting.
Yes.
Last year we talked about a minute ago we talked about last year's 2+ shot advantage that one wave had over another. Jordan Smith was on the wrong side of that wave and still finished T24. Obviously has a good links record.
He's also very consistent with cuts made.
Yep.
So I think let's go up to Jordan.
Beautiful. So we spent all 50K of the salary. We have Terrell Hatton. We have Tommy Ladd. We have Adam Scott. We have Alex Smalley, Aaron Rye, and Jordan Smith. I would say that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
I like it.
That's the 50-50 and double up lineup for DraftKings. I know you've got probably, I don't know if you have any first round leader bets, but you also have just the tip. And I can't wait to go back and watch it. But for now, I must bid you adieu. Hope everyone has a wonderful week, and I'm going to turn it over to Patrick Perry because he's really the guy that's hot right now anyway. I mean, he's up 80 units. So
yeah, I mean, you go do your thing, and we'll just talk about winning over here. Okay. All right. So I love the cash lineup. I think that one actually could go into a good GPP though. Don't forget that was a tip we gave out a few weeks ago. You got to make sure you put that in a GPP. All right, so I do have some first round leader bets. So before I get into our final just the tip segment here, I think there's a few guys that I like first round leaders, and we have tee times now, so these are 3 of them are morning guys, and I think with the weather right now, the way it's looking, it's going to be a little bit more. It looks like the morning's going to be a little bit milder, but not a whole lot. But I like Richie Ramsey. He's at 125 to 1 Scottish guy. I like him a lot. I like Bobby Mack, another Scottish guy. He is at 75 to 1. Sahith Theegala is 75 to 1 as well. I think Sahith can have a good week. He's been really up and down as far as his play on the PGA Tour lately. But Sahith is one of these guys that can go low. He's on a course at the Renaissance Club, or Renaissance Club, as Matt Adams said that we should call it if we're over in Scotland. It's a course where you really just like hitting fairways is not a premium. You don't have to do that. As a matter of fact, I think Xander Schauffele, who won it last year, hit like, I don't know, somewhere around like 40 or 50% of fairways. You just don't have to hit them to do well there. So Sahith can get a little bit squirrely with the driver. That's okay, apparently. So 75 to 1, Sahith Theegala. Last guy, bomber off the tee. Great player in general, though. We've seen him up on the leaderboard at some majors for sure, and in good fields. And I like Ryan Fox a lot. He is at 85 to 1. So Ryan Fox, now he goes off in the afternoon. He's the only afternoon guy I've got as far as my first round leaders are here. So, all right, we got to get into the tip, just the tip. All right, and this is a tip this week that is not just for this week. It is for next week as well. And this is something you've got to understand when you get into these events over here, whether it's in Scotland, whether it's in Ireland, whether it's in England. When we're over here, yes, this is a future tip too. So we're talking about this week and we're talking about next week. Okay, you've got to pay attention to the weather. All right, now we always have to pay attention to the weather in normal events, right? But these 2 weeks are one where you've got to wait and you got to be patient. Wait until the last minute, really, for your bets. For a lot of your lineups, when you're looking at DFS lineups, you've really got to have a good idea of what's going to happen as far as the weather wave is concerned. As David mentioned earlier with Matt Adams, right at the end of that segment, there was over a 2-shot differential, scoring differential between the morning wave and the afternoon wave for this event, the Scottish Open last year. Okay. That's something we also see at the Open Championship as well. There is a huge potential for that, whether it's with rain, whether it's with wind, mostly wind. That's really going to create the biggest differential. You got to be paying attention to that. So what I would say, this tip, you've got to understand, wait for your lineups, wait for your bets, be patient. Okay. You just can't go ahead and fire it in your bets on a Monday when we're over here overseas. All right. When we hop the pond. All right. You gotta get a little patient. You gotta wait. You gotta look at all the information, look at the tee times, go look at the weather. I use Wind Finder. That's an app that I like, especially over there. I think that's one that is important. You got to check out see what the wind's doing in the morning, see what it's doing in the afternoon, see what kind of gusts you're going to have. I'm not saying you got to become a meteorologist. Okay. We're not saying that. All right. Just basics, wind, rain, those kind of things. That's what we're looking for here. So just the tip this week is you've got to wait as far as what you're going to do with your bets. Now, speaking of bets, I got a few here. I got some time before we end the show. So I do want to talk about a few outrights that I know DB and I both like for this tournament. The Scottish Open, as I mentioned, you don't have to necessarily be that accurate off the tee. You've got your normal favorites up here, your Schefflers, your Rory McIlroys, all those. Those are the 2 favorites this week. I like dropping down a little bit if I'm going to start my bets off. I'm going to look at Tyrrell Hatton. He's around 20 to 1. I'm going to look at a Tommy Fleetwood. Fleetwood just can't win on U.S. soil, apparently. It's just not going to happen for him. And he's on our betting cards every week, it appears. And this week he's at 22 to 1. That's the best odds I'm seeing him. I think a sneaky play is Matthew Fitzpatrick, too. I think, you're getting him at around 25 to 1 odds. I like him. So I think he's one that you need to look at. Going out a little longer, I mentioned this earlier on the cash lineup. Adam Scott's one I like. You can get him for around 50 to 60 to 1. Justin Rose is around 50 to 1. I like staying in that range this week. I don't want to get too crazy. I don't think these 100 to 1 odds guys are going to win. I think you're going to want to stay in that mid-range to shorter end. All right. That is all I got That's the tip. That's the first round leaders. That's some bets, some outrights. I think we're going to have a great week. We'll see you again next week for the Open Championship at Royal Liverpool. It is going to be fantastic. I love it. We get morning golf. It's going to be awesome. All right. Out.
What can we expect from you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Your heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite, but that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition, and I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Back! Come on! Let's go! Come on, dig it! Dig it! Yeah!
Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire, over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush, you were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose on the loose. Watch out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations, and no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Yeah!